Phil, it's like radio show where they say that so and so person has requested a song,
Yeah, a shout.
and you love it. You love it.
Long distance shout out.
Yeah.
The room.
Shashi, it's his birthday and he wants us to play My Way. Can we do that? Yeah, spin it up.
Hi, I'm Chris Lockhart. Welcome to another episode of Consultants Saying Things. Today, I'm joined by Shashi Sharmali and Phil Yanoff, and Bill is not with us today. But today, we're talking about platform modernization, all right? This is about technical debt. This is about legacy IT. This is about business transformation, things of that nature. They're all sort of interrelated. And we have sort of some disagreement among the panel here about what it means and what that problem really is. But over the course of this podcast, you're actually going to hear what we think in response to a number of questions that were asked on LinkedIn about this topic. So, listen up and maybe your question will be in here. So first, Shashi, I want to ask you for Shashi, thanks for joining. You look good. I'm emulating the beard. I'm trying to look as sophisticated as you there.
Keep trying.
Yeah. So give me the 30 seconds. What do we mean when we say platform modernization?
Yeah. So typically, the way people perceive that as it's more of an IT thing. But when I talk about the platform encompasses both business and IT. So basically, you are talking about modernizing your technology stack, modernizing your processes, and modernizing the people above all in order to serve your next generation of customers within the industry. So that's what platform modernization to me is. But the way it's perceived is it's more like you replace your legacy system, the new modern tools, such as a new ERP platform or a Salesforce platform. But I don't think that's the case. If that is how people are perceiving it, it's bound to fail.
Well, so I mean, kind of sounds like some stuff that some consulting partner somewhere made up in order to sell a platform, right? Oh, did you know you've got technical debt? Ooh, right? You need, our consulting services to help you retire that and get rid of it. I mean, Phil, is this a made up problem? What?
Well, so, I mean, I'm going to I wanted to bounce that back to you for a second. I mean, the first part of this is, modernization, right? I mean, I get that. Now the technical debt, I mean, I guess that in that case, you're just saying, this is the stuff that we own and the opportunity cost of being in it as opposed to being in something else. That's the technical debt, right? I mean, and we've got to decide whether we're going to do something about it or not. I mean, I get it. I'm kind of with you. It's a consulting term to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt. There's a sort of FOMO in this. Oh, by the way, you guys aren't on version J. I mean, it's still back on H. What's wrong with you people, right? But I think there is something like that. But on the other hand, we also know that we're in a space, right, where the platform, and when I say platform, I mean the software that the guys develop that we're working on top of typically, right? But those platforms, they undergo these changes and they're saying, oh, this is the benefit of being in the cloud, or this is the benefit of being software driven or digitally driven, that we can make changes to it and that, this is going to be good because you're going to get new features. Me, as the user or the developer on that platform, I'm going, holy cow, these dudes are moving the furniture every time I look around. It had nothing to do with me. You may call it a new feature, but everything I was used to moved from here to here. I don't know that was better. I've got a training burden now on top of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Shashi, when you sort of suggested this as a topic, I have to be honest with you, I was thinking of it probably the way you're describing that people should not think about it, right? There is this idea that okay, you're going to do a platform modernization. If I'm in the business, I'm a business stakeholder, right? You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like I'm going to have to give up a lot of money so that I'm going to pour it down the black hole of IT cost center while you upgrade from version 1.1.8 to 1.1.9. And who the hell cares other than all the gearheads with their beanies that have propellers on them, right? They're all super happy. Because
I'm going to stop you right there.
all right.
You use the word IT as a cost center.
Yeah, I know.
That itself
I
is
knew that
fundamental
would get you
flaw.
going.
If you are thinking about that in today's world, that itself is something is wrong, right? So that's
Tell me
number one.
more. Tell me more.
Yeah.
Why? Why is it wrong?
I mean, that's a whole together a different topic around the role of IT within modern day organizations, right? So the modern day organization also needs to modernize. So IT's role needs to be changed from being a cost center to the front end, but that's a whole together different topic. But what I want to say is, let's say you bought a new house, right? Um, Everything in your house, even paint or plumbing and everything has a shelf life, right? You got to modernize or you got to renovate your house. So another way to look at modernization is you need to continue to renovate, take your car for servicing, and when the lease time is over in 3 years, you got to look for another car, right? I got to learn to drive it. If you don't want to drive it to Phil's point, you can continue to drive fancy BMW, what you have been driving. You don't go and drive Porsche or anything of that sort. So that can minimize your training risks. But you need to renovate. You need to modernize. Sometimes you go to fancy apartment in Manhattan. Sometimes you live in suburbs with a 5-bedroom house. You need to continue to evolve. You need to continue to modernize.
All right, but so like, look, I understand sort of two pieces of this, right? On the one hand, I do understand sort of the traditionally more IT approach to this, which says, look, I got to keep up with the latest version of the gunkulator right out there so that I can do whatever I need to do for the business. And that's going to require a certain amount of investment. But that's sort of like, that's run, right? That's running the business. That's business as usual, BAU. I'm running. It's keeping the lights on. I got it. This is part of the cost of doing business.
Exactly. So
right?
That's an upgrade. That's what you call is you're upgrading yourself. It's not really modernizing. When you are going from version 8.2 to 9.0, you are just upgrading yourself, and so that and the rationale for that is sometimes your vendor will stop the support for that.
Right.
Sometimes it's a new feature which you can do fancy stuff within the IT realm, not really impacting the users. Sometimes you can build new capabilities for the user, but modernization is kind of ripping and replacing it with a completely modern day platform. That's a little more radical as compared to upgrades.
Okay. All right. So upgrading, we agree, table stakes. Everyone has to do it, right? You got to upgrade, you got to patch, you got to do that's running the business, right? And what we're talking about here is really, okay, if I'm going to modernize, what I'm really saying is, you know what, instead of doing that, I'm just going to use an example. Instead of doing that on premise in my data center with servers that I bought from IBM on a depreciation schedule with software that I'm paying, by the CPU for, instead of running it that way with in-house development, writing the code, I'm going to get rid of the legacy infrastructure, the cost associated with that, and I'm going to do as needed cloud sort of delivery model for that. Maybe I still use my in-house developers, but now the cost of doing that is shifted a little bit in different ways. And so, that's modernizing, right? That's because you're changing the underlying way in which IT delivers. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree with that. I mean, what is the rationale? What is the driving factor behind this modernization effort?
Well, I want to hear your point, but that's sort of my second piece of it. So that was the second piece of this, and I want your reaction to this, and Phil also, right? Is like, when we say modernization and we talk about a platform, doing a lot of air quotes, right? But it's not IT, right? It's we're not talking about IT. We're talking about the processes. We're talking about how the business actually delivers a product for their customer, right? If I'm this business stakeholder, I got to look at platform modernization as my problem, right? It's not a patch to a server. That's not modernization.
It's not an IT thing.
It's not an IT.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you saying too, Chris, that when you're talking about platform, then that you mean the business platform even more than the technical platform on which you built the software?
Absolutely, right? To give you a real world example, right? I have a client, they have multiple lines of business, right? When they do a platform modernization, right, they are not modernizing the AIX servers running WebSphere version 8 point whatever. They're modernizing the bank delivery process.
Yes.
and everything that goes with that, right? It's like a business architecture thing. It's not like a propeller head thing in the data center, right? Sorry to the propeller heads out there that are in the data center listening to the podcast. But, I really think it's like if I'm doing a platform modernization, I'm modernizing how I do bank.
Right.
Right.
How I act as a bank to these people or to this specific customer set or whatever.
Right. Or if I'm doing loans, right? It's like, how do I modernize the loan? Think about all the things that go into a loan, right? Both from the customer perspective, I got to research and Google and then I got to, apply and all these different things. And then I got to pay. And then I got to go into the portal and look at my, my statement and all. From the customer side, from the internal side, right? It's like, well, I need to know who you are and I have to originate the loan. I have to underwrite it. I have to do all these things, right?
Right.
If I'm going to modernize, I'm modernizing that. I'm not modernizing whether it runs on Linux or Windows or Amazon, whatever the heck it is, right?
Yeah. So let's take a step back, right, and think about three pieces of the puzzle, right? People. I mean, it's a cliche thing: people, process, and technology, right? If you are looking at just modernizing just the technology piece of it, what are you going to do? You had a 25-year-old system. You want to replace it with more modern either ERP system or a CRM system, right? So what are you going to do? You will go to the business, and if you're not changing the process, then you try to replicate your existing processes, which are catering to your existing, users of the system, and then completely customizing the heck out of these modern systems. And then you live with something which is worse than a technical debt. If you are not committed to modernizing your process and people, I would highly recommend stay away from modernizing your technology. Stay away from it, because then it's a disaster.
That's a bold statement. All right.
Yes.
On this thread, I want to go to. We had LinkedIn questions, right? That I basically I may have told you guys. I sort of preempted all of this yesterday. I was inspired. In the middle of my inspiration, I sent out a LinkedIn post where I was basically saying, like, listen, we're going to talk about this subject, and we got some responses. That's some things that people thought might be interesting to discuss. So I want to ask this question to you guys, and I have a perspective on it as well. Diana Alt, a self-described product geek, agile and product management coach, consultant, and some other things which trailed off. She does a lot.
That's the great thing about LinkedIn. We can have a lot of stuff in that list. That's good.
She does a lot. Okay. There's a lot going on in that, but she on this thread, right? She wants to kind of understand, how you get business leaders and technology leaders. I feel like technology leaders are probably talking about this kind of thing already through their lens, but how do you get business leaders and technology leaders sort of in the same room to talk about this as a business problem instead of just I'm going to upgrade the software?
Yeah. And I think, I know you guys, you've spent a lot of time doing this, but that as she describes the problem, she says, I've seen a lot of bad communication in this space. And it's typically because the business leaders and the technical leaders haven't previously established trust as they go into this process, right? And so they see themselves as an adversarial relationship as opposed to a cooperative one. And you got to figure out how to make that turn. And I am sure that you guys have had to be in spaces where, oh my gosh, these cats are all battling when they should be helping each other.
So I have an interesting take on this, right? So remember, Chris, you said the role of IT would be more important. If IT is a cost center, then IT has to prove to business why they need to modernize. And moment you are having that kind of conversation, I think that's an uphill battle, right? So the key part I feel is, the eventual goal is for both business, people in the business and people in the technologies, eventually improve the outcome. That's what is important. If the goal is common, it shouldn't be hard to get people in the room. And element of trust is extremely important.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with you.
To your point, though, to the outcome is whatever the business objective happens to be at the time. Because, those shift from time to time, right? Sometimes I'm about cost containment. Sometimes I'm about revenue generation. Sometimes I'm about better customer service in one area or another. And that's where those people have to get together. And I think there's a pretty valid history of that is not the technical group doesn't always get that.
Yeah,
Is
and
that
that's actually a good point. I mean, Diana mentioned in her comment, normally what she hears is like, the engineering team, right, is saying like, well, we got to upgrade this or we have to pay off this technical debt, right? And it doesn't resonate with the business. And one of the things, down further in the same thread, Howard, who's a principal consultant and enterprise architect, he actually, responded to this and he said, listen, it's not up to necessarily always up to the engineering team to sort of convince the business, right? It's up to the business to lead on this, that this is a business problem, not a tech problem. And so the business has to sort of, not just collaborate, not just be present, not on the racy matrix. They're not just informed, right? They are leading this.
it's funny you say that. Right now, I'm working on a proposal, and it's about a contact center modernization for a health plan, right? So their client has already bought the licenses of Salesforce Health Cloud, of course, without doing any kind of due diligence. They wanted it, they got the license. Now they want to put a release out there by Q1 2020. Now, so when some of us were putting proposal together, we are saying, let's gather the requirements, we will build the system, and then we will deploy it for you. Now, the conversation has to be more around, I insisted and I removed or changed that requirements gathering phase. And I said that this will be a business process led implementation. So business will be at the forefront of it. And upfront, I insisted that we do the business design type of exercise and follow on with the adoption, which is the post implementation concern, and not make it as an IT implementation project. So in a nutshell, I 100% agree with you. Business has to lead this. Business has to be committed to this. Business has to be continuously engaged right from the business design to technical implementation to adoption and change management, and not to stop there. Ongoing innovation leveraging these platforms.
Let me ask you a question though on that. Okay. Yes, I agree with you 100%. Have you, Shashi, ever seen that happen?
Yes, I have made that happen.
No.
I have made that happen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
As a consultant, I'm proud of that project of ours. This was the exact conversation. So client came to me and said that, hey, we are getting on the Salesforce journey and we are going to do the requirements. That's how I want your help to gather the requirements. I changed the conversation, and to the credit of that person, and she's a chief marketing officer of a regional health plan, and to her credit, she understood and appreciated that, and we undertook this Herculean effort. And I had support from the CIO, henceforth chief revenue officer, and we were able to drive that. And that's one of the most successful projects in the entire company right now, just because of that. I have been successful in doing that. Doesn't happen often. I agree with you. Doesn't happen often. Probably 95% of the time doesn't happen. But the success, that is primary of the reason most of the platform modernization effort fail.
Brent Stokes, who Phil, you and I both know, he's a recruiter for IT in the healthcare Medicaid space. But he had a question around organizational change, right? So clearly, like any sort of platform modernization may involve skills, may involve maybe some necessary reassignments or dismissals or whatever. So how critical is it to bring in sort of that organizational change perspective when you're talking about a platform modernization? Phil, what's your perspective on that?
Well, in my own experience, you have to get the organization ready for change. And the bigger it is, the more, I don't know if inoculation is the right word, but you've got to do something ahead of time to say, look, we are going to make some changes here, and we got to figure out together where we are headed and get that buy-in. I think it can be really difficult. And certainly, as you well know, the days of sort of unilateral change where the IT department says, using FUD as their trick, right, that we're going to make a change because otherwise we're screwed. Those days are kind of gone. And what you really have to do is kind of get to get the organization ready, because all those things fail. In my own experience, going through that stuff, you got to get down to where the end users are adopting new systems. And my gosh, you need the dog to walk along with the cart and not be pulling the rope at every step of the way, right? It doesn't go anywhere if you don't get that buy-in that you were looking for. I don't know, Shashi, that's the way I see it. What do you think?
No, I 100% agree. Remember the way we define platform modernization. technology modernization, process modernization, people modernization. Organization change management is about people modernization. You are trying to change the way people interact with the system, people collaborate. That's what exactly organization change management is. And if you really ask me, I think most of the time, more than 60% of the time, that is primarily the reason why there is no adoption and the technology modernization aspect fails, because they are not able to change the behavior of people. They're not able to train people. People quit companies. um, it's probably single most one of the biggest reason why companies fail to modernize their technology.
I
I'm
think
not going
that's,
to say platform.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a really good point. In fact, I think there's a book about this.
Playing the part of Bill Bensing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think, but I think part of the reason why it becomes a problem, I've been lots of places, right, where it's like, oh yeah, they agree, we need organizational change. And what they mean is, I'm going to move Jim from this box to this box. It's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you need to go from maybe waterfall delivery to agile delivery, or that's change. Just moving boxes, spans and layers. That's not always organizational change. And I think it has and someone pointed this out on LinkedIn, it has sort of a dirty connotation, right? It comes up when you think of organizational change. A lot of people think of the movie Office Space, where the Bobs come in to basically fire a bunch of people, right?
Right.
And we're not talking about that. We're not talking about firing a whole bunch of people. We're talking about changing how you deliver from an organizational perspective. All right.
And reskilling them, retooling them, and of course identifying the gaps in your people. If that skill does not exist which you need, you may need to hire.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about this. I mean, I apologize in advance. I'm gonna butcher the name. Vedislav Antos. So the question here is really around, okay, great. We're going to do all of this change. We're making all of these changes. How do I go about sort of modernizing and keeping the lights on at the same time? How do I do both, right? And he gives a really good example, right? It's like, I'm renovating a house, right? I've got a house, I'm renovating the basement, but I'm not like, fundamentally changing the house. Like, how do I do this? Is it building the plane while it's flying? Maybe that's another.
Great point which he has raised, and truly appreciate it. Another reason why most of the modernization effort fail, because you got to run the business, it's nobody's priority. And this is a multi-dimensional problem. And if you can find the solution to this problem, you will become multimillionaire right there. So,
that's a good tip then. Is that it?
Exactly. So, whoever asked, I can't pronounce the name, but whoever asked that question, go ahead and start something of your own. You are up for something big.
Yeah,
Jokes apart.
but to be serious about this, right? You guys have worked on big projects that have big organizational change. I mean, non-trivial organizational change. That requires a plan. I mean, there's an implementation plan. There's a communications plan. There's getting everybody involved. I mean, that is how you change the wheels on the wagon while you're dragging it down the road, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, I would break it down into 3 dimensions. Again, people, process, tech. When it's about tech, how do you fly it? That's where your enterprise integration, and I'm going to be a little bit techy, apologies for people in advance. So around your legacy system, which you are trying to modernize, you got to abstract it and build a layer around it so that you can easily replace that central piece part by part with a modern system. So that's the technology side of it. Process side of it, you need to design those interim processes or transient processes which will be active during this transition phase. So you need to pay special attention to that. Most of the time people pay attention to current process, future process. But what about those freaking interim process where you need to do those things? These are the throwaway things. Third dimension is again the people side of it, where again you may need to give people multiple roles which they can play in the transient state before they get into that final roles. So again, you got to look at from those 3 layers and find solutions around that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're very passionate about this, Shashi. I love it. What I was thinking is, I mean, I completely agree with what you said. And Phil, to your point, I mean, I think, not to sell work, but it's like, I think you need someone that has been there in the trenches with things like this before and kind of knows the things to look out for and avoid and to think about in advance. And your point You need a plan. Of course. But you know what a lot of people think of as a plan involves Microsoft Project and like 50,000 pages. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a plan that says, look, you know, we're here, we want to be here, and this is why. I can quantify it with dollars that says, if I get there, it will improve by X. And this is how I justify the work that's going into it. And here are the interim steps along the way. And it's going to be disruptive. It's going to require people to change. And, you know, if you take 10 people in an organization, right, and you are in there to institute some sort of change, a platform modernization in the case that we're talking about, of the 10 people, statistically, you're going to get something like 2 of them that are like, yep, let's go. I'm on board. Let's do it. Then you're going to have something like, you know, 5 in the middle that say,
if you carry me, I'll go with you.
Yeah, maybe I haven't really thought about it. I don't know. And then you have the 3 that are like, no effing way, right?
Right. They're dragging you. Right. They're dug in.
I know Oracle, and you're not taking away Oracle, right? That sort of
right.
thing. How do you get you can't convince the 3. The 3 want to kill you in your sleep, right? Smother you with a pillow, right? But how do you get, of those, you got the 2 on board, so now you just need 3 of those 5 in the middle, right? How do you get them? Yeah. Right? How do you articulate a story around?
Well, that's a bridging story. That's a classic marketing play, right? It's a bridging story. And I get it. You don't know, you don't trust, you don't believe yet, but let me understand what the problems are that you see. What are the things that keep you from seeing this better future? And let's tell a bridging story to how we get to there, right? So look, I get it. I was a skeptic at the beginning of the process too, right? And I didn't think this was even going to be possible. But you know what? I looked at work I'd seen Chris doing in other places, and I knew that he successfully pulled people into new systems. These guys know how to do it, and I trust them, and I'm wondering why you wouldn't trust them too. That kind of bridging story.
I would approach this in a slightly different way. That storytelling is a good idea, but I would say that, you know, let's go ahead and show them quick wins. Let's actually do it in a smaller scale. Show them quick wins. Nothing better than something which you can do it in that particular environment, because they can say that, you know, this person has solved this problem within some other context, but our context is different. So let's
always. So that's, by the way, I'm completely with you, Shashi, but that's one of the bridging stories. Every person thinks their problem is unique. Our situation, our business, no one sends out an invoice the way we do. No one does this process the way we do, right? It's always something like that. And so one of the stories has to be, you know what? I thought we were unique. People felt like that. But you know what? If we write this down, we can develop a process to get us to the new one. Exactly. We just have to figure that out.
So I would say, like, minimum viable products, show them quick wins, and then they will rally along with you, because once you show them, they don't have any other reason to push back.
Yeah, you know, and that actually leads into another question from Jorge Goana, who's a software architect in .NET and Azure, and his point is, you know, look, you know, you don't always have to rip shit out. Well, he didn't say that, but stuff. I'm paraphrasing. You don't always have to rip stuff out, right? Sometimes the legacy stuff, while it's working, is all you need. You don't need to transform everything. And I think that's part of this sort of storytelling, right? And, you know, oh, my problem is so unique. Actually, you know what? Everyone has that problem with Lotus Notes. And the way to deal with it is X, Y, and Z. That's a terrible example because nobody uses Lotus Notes. But you get my point, right? Which is, listen, you know, some of these things that are legacy, if they work, and they're not part of sort of a strategic roadmap of what the future looks like. And it's like I'll give you a real example, right? The printf function on a mainframe, okay? Mainframes exist no matter what people tell you about, like they're all going away. But the printf function, there is no reason to transform and modernize the printf function. Just let it run and do its thing. You don't have to spend millions of dollars to fix that. That's not a problem. So, I mean, I think that that's kind of an interesting thing. I mean, his point is, you know, shiny new things are really attempting to follow, right? But, you know, legacy can still be better in some cases. Thoughts?
I think you're right about that bit. And, if it works, why are you messing with it? What is it you're hoping to get to? I think this leads to the other question also that was on there, which is that Winston had asked, which is, when do we call something legacy and when is it not legacy? And I'm not convinced that sometimes, the industry will call something legacy because they want to sell you the new thing.
Yep.
The very definition of legacy is, I've got a new one that I can sell you.
Right. Like Apple. Apple seems to have planned obsolescence, right? Sort of
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, it's aggressive planned obsolescence. Right.
Great perspective. So it's legacy not from the point of view of the vendor who is making you feel as if your system is legacy. The definition of legacy should come in within the organization when business feels that that particular platform, technology platform, is not able to satisfy their need. That's number one. Second, Liver, the reason why people would want to modernize is if the skills are not available in the market, right? If it's becoming too expensive for you to maintain and manage that system, then you know that system is legacy. If you don't find a developer who can continue to support that particular platform, then you know it is a legacy. So there are various factors you need to consider, the reasons why you may need to modernize. Business desire and business ability support the business growth is one reason, but then skills becoming obsolete. Vendors stop supporting, a specific platform. Vendor going out of business. Many times that happens. Vendor goes out of business. Now what do you do? Where do you get support from? So all those are like IT-driven modernization initiatives, not really business.
Interesting. I think, one of the things that is really at the forefront of a lot of people's minds right now, certainly from like a CIO perspective or within the technology organization, well, frankly, the whole organization, is cybersecurity, right? And obviously there are daily events that highlight the importance of that and making sure that you're approaching things in the most modern way possible so that you have the best security controls and whatnot. And, Vincent Amarato, he asked sort of, okay, if you're talking about technical debt, is there such a thing as cybersecurity debt? Are they related? What might be the difference? Shashi, you're shaking your head. Is that a consultant thing that we made it up?
It's not a consultant thing. If you really see, right, I think there are so many things happening in the cybersecurity space. If I am applying one policy right now, in 6 months to 1 year, that policy may become obsolete. So there is a need for you to modernize, right? So it's the same thing. I personally feel platform modernization or the technology modernization can happen in a multi-year time frame, but security modernization or cybersecurity modernization has to be kept up to pace in the number of months time frame. So yes, it exists, and companies need to be on the edge of it, especially public companies, before they become bankrupt.
I mean, the whole concept of technical debt, right, is that we've allowed something to lapse into a state where it's going to be difficult to get it back out of that state up to current standards as they exist, right? I mean, cybersecurity has got to be, a very strong place in which people have they didn't understand what the problem was, they didn't understand what they needed to do about it, and they kind of let it go for some period of time, right? And there are things that need to be done there. I think about this from a cybersecurity standpoint. It's particularly, I think, in the cloud services side of this, right? So a lot of people have migrated this stuff to cloud, and from a technical debt standpoint, in this case, there are newer standards for security available on these cloud platforms, but they're not implemented widely. And that's why some of these companies find themselves in trouble, is because they've not implemented the standards that are available for plugging these holes.
If you're the cat out there, right, that's a practitioner in this space, then and by the way, there are kind of two sides to this, right? There's the IT practitioner that's involved in a platform modernization effort. And then there's sort of the business stakeholder that may not know that really it's their problem at its core, right? So what message do we have for sort of these two sides of the balance sheet here, of the equation?
From a technical debt side, I think that is completely appropriate for people in the technology space to say, look, it is part of our job to make sure we're not so far behind in platform development that we're creating a problem in the future that's difficult, right? We don't want our technical debt to acquire interest as we go along the way, right? I mean, we want to keep this thing up to date. So I think I get that as well. I'm sure Shashi's got more to add on top of that, but I think you have to keep that conversation fresh, and you have to do it in a way without sounding like you're always just, you're passing around the cup, asking for more money in the technical budget.
So what is the outcome both business stakeholders and IT stakeholders want? Both of them eventually want to be successful. And let me tell them right now, they won't be successful if they don't collaborate with each other. If IT is trying to just modernize their system without, engaging or deeply engaging business, or just keeping business at the bay, they will fail miserably. Same thing with business. If business does not get engaged and underlying IT platform is getting modernized, guess who gets impacted? They are the one who gets impacted. Their people won't be able to, do their job more efficiently, effectively, and eventually they will lose business. IT will still have a job, but they are the one who are facing the heat of not generating enough revenue for the company, and they will be out of business soon. So it's in their vested interest to keep an eye on what IT is doing. Don't say that this is not my business. IT is your business. It's part of your business. So you have to be with them, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if Bill was here, I think he said this before, right? Like every major successful company is a technology company at its core, because the business of the business is in technology is part of the business. It is the business, right? It's like, I mean, so I agree on like a lot of this, right? Which is, look, if you're the practitioner, or let's say you're, middle management or whatever, low-level executive management in charge of practitioners, you got to be thinking about the fact that, like, look, I have to be constantly running my business in the technology space with the keep the lights on mentality. Like, I got to be patching, I got to be upgrading. Like, that's just table stakes. You got to do that. That's not modernization, right? Modernization is driven, I believe, from a business perspective, which says, I want to change how I process healthcare claims so that I can increase efficiency to reach some strategic goal that was set by the executive committee. And to do that, I need to process a claim in 15 seconds or whatever, right? Now, when I look at my ability to execute that, and by the way, I want to be clear about this. It's not the business looking at IT and saying, IT, how do you deliver this for me? It's, I am in the business and I have a colleague who mostly works in IT, and together we are looking at how do we deliver this, right, for these goals. And the guy that knows the most about technology is going to say, look, I can't do it in 15 seconds with the stack I've got, and here's all the technobabble why it can't happen. And here's what I need to do to modernize the way I'm delivering so that we can do this together. Like, it's got to be that kind of conversation. Otherwise, it's just a cost center, and you're just changing it from this widget to that widget, and nobody knows why, right?
So the good part of being an IT cost center, Chris, you can go back home at 5 o'clock and play with your kids.
Okay. Well, okay, that's good stuff. Hey, before we wrap up, Phil, I should point out, you have a banner in the background there. Can you tell us a little bit about what that says? Tech After 5. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, this is my. I've got a Tech After 5 step and repeat banner, right? It's like a little logo on it on the thing. So we use this at our Tech After 5 events. People all the time, it's like they want a picture and they want the banner and they want their logo. And so we're trying to make it as easy as possible. So I thought today I would stick it up and remind folks that, one of the ways that they can connect with us, and let me tell you, they're already doing it and I love it. I never go to any of our Tech After 5 events without someone walking up saying, hey, I watch you guys on the podcast. I really enjoyed this and that. And they talk about some of the things that we've said on there. So I think that's really great. But, people can come visit with us in any of the cities we happen to be in. And if it's hard to find, it's just right there, Tech After 5. And
it's ta5.com. Is that right?
Yeah, ta5.com or techafter5.com. Either one will work. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for the questions. Visit us on YouTube. That's where most of the videos are, and all the back videos. There's a channel out there. And once we hit 50,000 subscribers, we can have a unique URL that goes along with the channel. But if you just Google it, you will find it really quickly. And also, check out the website, consultantsayingthings.com. All the videos are out there as well. And if you are only listening, you can find us on Anchor, or it's on iTunes, it's on Google, it's on Stitcher, it's everywhere. So look for that. And hey, listen, like it and subscribe to it so that we can continue to do it. So appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Hey guys, we love having you here with Consultants Saying Things, and we need your help. So subscribe and like. Press the bell. Let yourself know every time we got a brand new episode out, and you won't miss any of us.